let's get your phone calls to react to last night's election outcomes. 217-629-7970. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Springfield's News and Talk. It was a late night last night. Of course, kudos to Jim Leach for staying. I don't even know what time Jim got done last night. I didn't get into bed about till 1:45. The election night party at the Crown Plaza for Darren Bailey. It was stretching out throughout the night, even after Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton in Chicago declared victory shortly after the Associated Press, which was kind of weird. To be honest, I mean, being in press row at a election night watch party, and then the word kind of starts floating. AP just announced Bailey or Pritzker won, and I'm sitting there refreshing even Cook County and Chicago Board of Elections websites, and there were zero numbers in. Zero numbers were reported. Even in Lake County and DuPage County, some of the most populous counties in the state, I was refreshing their election results. Zero results being officially reported. Despite that, the Associated Press went ahead and declared victory for J.B. Pritzker. So shortly after that, you had Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton make a speech, and then the governor came out and gave a victory speech. And it was about 45 minutes or so before Darren Bailey came out on stage and said there's still room for a miracle, but congratulated the governor on a victory and said that the governor needs to do better. So interesting to hear your thoughts on how this panned out, and what were you hoping? Did you get what you wanted, or are you disappointed? But you also have all of the statewide constitutional office holders being maintained in Democrat hands. Illinois is not a purple state. Illinois is a blue state. I know people always try to say, well, hey, we've got, some conservative liberals, and we're kind of a purple state. I don't know. Last night indicates that Illinois is very much a deep blue state in the Midwest, seeming to be an island of sorts surrounded by other states that are more red. So the outcomes all across the statewide office holders all going to Democrats. We've got a new Secretary of State. Alexi Giannoulias is going to be the first Secretary of State in more than 20 years after Jesse White stepped down. He beat out Dan Brady. You've got Attorney General Kwame Raoul maintaining his position, beating out Tom DeVore. You've also got the Comptroller Susana Mendoza beating out her Republican opponent, and even Treasurer Michael Frerichs beating out his Republican opponent. So all statewide constitutional offices being held by Democrats. Uniparty rule in the state of Illinois. And that's going to be reinforced with the maintaining of the supermajorities for Democrats in the House and Senate. So not much ground made at all by Republicans in races all across the state. So Democrats are going to have their supermajority in the state legislature in both the House and Senate. And this has even led to the House Minority Leader, Jim Durkin, announcing this morning he is not going to be seeking the role of House Minority Leader come January when the new General Assembly is seated. So he says that the Republican Party needs to be rebuilt in Illinois. And that could be because there wasn't necessarily a unified front in Illinois for the Republican ticket. While the Democrats, statewide office holders and those vying for statewide office all rallied together, you didn't see that happen in Illinois with Republicans. It seemed that there were sections and sects of factions of Republicans, those who lumped themselves together with Tom Demmer, Dan Brady. They never really came out and said that they supported Darren Bailey for his bid for governor. So interesting to see that dynamic and what that portends for the Republican Party in the state of Illinois. But something else, too, that's top of mind. And, of course, you can chime in here at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Live with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. What's fascinating here is, of course, you had the statewide office holders, the governor to treasurer, attorney general, and so on. But when it comes to the constitutional amendment that was on the ballot, we still don't know the outcome of that. We've got about, 85% reporting for Amendment 1. That's the amendment that would codify collective bargaining in the Illinois Constitution. Supporters called it the Workers' Rights Amendment. Opponents said that it would raise property taxes by increasing benefits and pay for public sector employees, thereby increasing how much taxpayers have to pay for it. But as of right now, with 85% reporting in, about 58.7% approve of the amendment. And you're thinking, well, that's more than half. Well, that's not necessarily the threshold it would need for that ballot question. The constitutional amendment process in Illinois requires a proposed amendment to get 3/5 of a majority. That's 60%. Well, early throughout the night, Amendment 1 was leading with 64 point some odd percent, and then it started to shrink as more numbers were coming in, and now it's below that 60% threshold at 58.7%. Another avenue that the amendment could possibly get for approval is if it gets 50% plus one of all votes cast. So you got to think, you vote on that particular issue, but your neighbor doesn't. But he cast a ballot for governor, for instance. So that would consider all votes cast, even those who didn't even fill in an oval for yes or no on the amendment. So the dust still has yet to settle there, and you've got a lot of people watching that very closely as to what happens. So we'll likely hear more updates on that throughout the day. But Congress is still very much across the country up in the air, and you've got people who are raising questions about, here we are, it's the day after elections, and we still don't know who's going to be in control of Congress. I mean, they're still tallying up all these numbers. And even in Illinois, even though we've got most of our races pretty much determined and concession speech has gone out, with Democrats having a really strong night in Illinois across the state, we're still not going to have finality for the final outcomes until all the mail-in ballots are in. And I think last I checked, there were about 280,000 remaining mail-in ballots. And they have up to 2 weeks to count those. So fascinating to see that as well. Let's take a call. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning. I got to say that I was disappointed after last night. So I was really hoping for a little bit, I don't know. I knew Illinois was going to go the way Illinois went because of the fact I think that there's just too much blue up in Chicago. I mean, if you just look at the map, the Democrats are winning in Chicago suburbs, and they're winning the city, and then they're winning in Champaign, and then like over in East St. Louis area, and that's everything else is red, and it's just I'm just very disappointed. But as far as that Amendment 1, I was really disappointed in that. I kind of. Just because of the fact there was nothing, I never saw anything. I saw hundreds of commercials, the same commercials over and over for saying yes to it and how good it was and how it protects workers and makes it safer to work, gives them better wages and all this stuff. But I never saw anything from the other side.
Yeah, the opponents.
The only place I ever heard anything from the other side is the few people you talked to on this station.
Yeah, and there were some text campaigns that were being sent out, I know. There were some social media video posts that were going out, and some of the business groups, including the Illinois Chamber, they were asked about, why hasn't there been a lot of money in opposition to this? And they said, well, in comparison to their opposition and the millions of dollars that were spent to defeat the progressive income tax 2 years ago, and their response was they didn't see it as much of a challenge as the progressive tax would have been for the state of Illinois. It wouldn't have helped Illinois' business climate, they say, of Amendment 1, but they didn't necessarily think it would have that much impact just because Illinois is already a very union-friendly state. Right. I mean, we don't have right to work. We're not going to have right to work unless there's an absolute sea change politically in this state. So that seemed to be what some of the rationale was behind not putting money behind opposing the amendment. But millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars from labor groups went into those commercials that you just talked about.
Oh, and they were huge, and they were so misleading. After reviewing the amendment. And then everything they said, and this is where I struggle with unions, because unions use the same thing. Oh, well, we'll provide you a safer place to work. I've been in anti-union campaigns before, and I hear that, well, we make more money. You can't fire me on the drop of the hat and stuff like that. And then I work in a non-union environment. I've worked in non-union environments, and you can't do that. I mean, I'm currently going through a 30-hour OSHA training, and there are so many OSHA rules that protect the safety of people and their jobs if they're working in an unsafe environment. And
there's a lot of the things that unions fought for throughout the generations have been codified, as you're saying there. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, this stuff's codified in law already.
Yeah, and listen, we've got the First Amendment right to peacefully assemble with those who we choose to, but also that means you can't be forced into an assembly, and that's really what the crux of the Janice v. AFSCME case as well. Hey, I appreciate the call. This is obviously something we're going to talk more about in the days ahead as the dust continues to settle. So keep it right here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg.